Welcome. So I thought I'd answer some questions on songwriting / general music stuff today. One of the questions I got more than anything was, how do I make my song sound original? Or how do I not make my song sound like the thing that I wrote it like? I think this is something that every beginning songwriter deals with, and it's two things. One, dealing with the myth that anything is original. This idealized, or maybe not idealized, but this view of art that it comes completely from within. You are a well, and every piece of art you make comes from your well. And when you think of art that way, you have to deal with, one, the fear of what if my well runs dry, and two, knowing this didn't come completely from me. I was influenced by this, that, or that. And what if people find out I'm a fraud? So for me, the first thing is knowing that every artist is influenced by other artists and by life. When I first started writing songs, what I did was I would take a song that I already loved, look up the chords, and ask myself, if I had written this song, what would it sound like? There's a very nice box to work within. You don't have a limitless amount of options. You have a direction, and you have the tools you can use. Basically, your one objective is to not write that song. So you can write any song, just not that song. The other thing you're dealing with within that question is that you know your influences. So for me, I know what songs I've heard influenced what songs I wrote, and to me, they're very similar. But here's the truth about music. Music is very similar. I don't know if this is a new thing on the internet or if it's just something I saw recently, but I saw this video of these guys doing Shape of You and then singing a bunch of other songs that have the same basic tempo and the same chords over Shape of You. And I encourage you to watch that, if only to encourage yourself that it's okay if your music sounds like other music. Our Western ears like certain chord progressions and we like certain types of rhythm. Great way to never write anything is to enter into creativity with fear. And whether that's the fear of what if this isn't good enough, or the fear of what if this sounds too much like something else, that makes it really hard to write. So if that's you right now, here's your homework. 1, listen to a lot of new music, especially if it's been a while. Put on Spotify or your music streaming thing of choice, and go to a playlist or a genre that you're not used to listening to. And then ask your brain, what melody would you write? Because when you've never heard something before, you don't know what to anticipate, you just know what you want to anticipate. So yeah, listening to new music. And then 2, write as many songs as you can. Like, decide you're going to write 10 songs in the next 2 months or whatever, without being afraid of them sounding too much like something, or of not being good enough. Not every song is a hit, and not every song ends up on a record. My producer told me when I was doing my first record that you should have written at least twice as many songs as you plan to release. Don't focus on the pressure of writing the perfect song. Just write a lot of songs, and some of them are going to be good, and some of them will be less good. The next question I got a lot of is, how do you get over stage fright? First question I would ask yourself is, what am I afraid of? And I think most people would say, I'm afraid. My hair is insane today. I think most people would say, I'm afraid of being in front of people. So why are you afraid of being in front of people? I'm afraid of making a fool of myself. Why are you afraid of making a fool of myself? Is the answer because I don't know what happens next? Or because it's out of control? Or because things won't be okay? And the way to get over that is to perform and maybe mess up and realize, oh, so I forgot the lyrics to most of my songs, and I'm okay. Maybe people go home with a story about how glad they were that they weren't you, but ultimately it's like, okay, yeah, I kind of wish that weren't me too, but now I've been on stage one more time than I had been before I did it. The more you perform, the less nervous you feel being on stage, because the more experience you have doing it. When I started going to open mics, and I wouldn't bring friends, because embarrassing yourself in front of strangers who don't know you is far less embarrassing than people who will remember. Eventually I did bring friends, but not right away. So it's like low stakes. The other thing about open mics is that most people do not care about your set. They're just there for their own opportunity to perform. And when I started, my knees would shake so bad I would have to put weight on them to stop them from trembling. But you do it enough and it just becomes your new normal. The other piece of advice I would say, if you really feel like you can't even muster the courage to do it once, I would tell you And this goes for songwriting, for being on stage, for everything. This one thing you're doing is not going to be the thing that makes or breaks you. This is not the culmination of your career. This is not anything besides one tiny piece in the 10,000 piece puzzle that is your career as an artist. So even though it feels overwhelming, especially if especially if you've been on stage less than 10 times, because each time you're on stage is 1/10 of your experience, ultimately, it's still a very small part. So free yourself from the pressure of this needing to be right or good enough. It's all just practice for the next thing. If you're interested, I made a video a while back about performing being its own skill set. So I'll link that in the description. I got a lot of questions about, is it better to write the melody or the lyrics first? So different songs come to me in different ways. I like to think of songwriting in that the song has already been written and already exists. Like if you could step outside of time, that song already exists. And my job is just to figure out what it is. That removes some pressure for me in the experience of writing. What was my train of thought here? Right, melody or lyrics first. So it's not always the same, but usually I'll start with an idea. So I want to write a breakup song, or I want to write a song about my mental health right now. Just having a general direction you want to start with. So I'll start by picking a chord progression and sort of singing nonsense syllables over it. Or maybe I have one line I've thought of. For On My Own, I put my foot in my mouth again because I just left a social situation where I was like, no, why did I say that? So I just started with, I put my foot in my mouth again, and sang different versions of different melodies until something fit, and the song kind of came out of that. I think it's helpful to write melody and lyrics together and to think of them as one thing, just like you think of words and your voice as one thing. Does that make sense? So I put my foot in my mouth again. That's how I'd say it. And singing it, I put my foot in my mouth again. It's got the same pitter-patter as sung and said. That's to me a sign of a well-written line. Does the melody complement how it would have been said normally? You don't want to have the melodic emphasis on a part of the word that you would not normally emphasize. But that's not a steadfast rule. Sometimes I ignore it. There are no rules in songwriting. So then usually melody forms a little more and I go back in and I fill in the lyrics. But lyrics inform the melody inform the lyrics, and they're very moldable until they're done. All right, closing thoughts. Ultimately, only you can write your songs. Why not give yourself the opportunity to explore your creativity and to learn how to be a better artist? The only way to learn is by doing. And you will die, and in a few hundred years, no one will remember you and nothing matters. So don't put so much pressure on yourself to need to write something that is good enough, original enough, anything enough. It can just be something you do. Allow yourself to give creativity a try. Okay. Last thought. I have good news and bad news. The good news is that since I made my video saying I was going to do Venom, I've been writing every day. Music. I said that I want to write my next project this spring and then put it out next year, so I feel really good about that. That's really exciting. The bad news is that those were days I had planned to spend filming for Venom, so I'm bailing on Venom. Sauce. So, compromise. Instead, I'm going to do 2 videos a week this month. I'm answering questions, so if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments to this video. Hope you have a great week, and I will see you in a couple of days. I'll probably do Tuesdays and Saturdays, but I'm not sure yet because I don't know what day today is. Bye.
Woof.